Matt, I think we are good to go. So let's just jump right into it. So again, thanks everybody for joining today. We are going to be talking about advanced RMAs and case management. Just to start with a quick agenda, we're going to be going over the gaps that currently exist in Business Central today. So some of the things you're missing or some of the things that feel manual or are difficult. We're also then going to talk about how to solution for those. So taking the gaps in what we've built that allows you to do these things easier inside of Business Central. Matt's going to go through a full-blown live demo of our advanced RMA and case management tool. We'll then jump into the next steps, the resources that you can use for both yourself and your clients, or if you're an end user, things that you can use, videos you can watch, materials that you can read that will help you self-implement. Of course, we're always here to help as well if you'd like that more handheld approach. And then if there's any questions and answers at the end, we'll go through that. I do highly encourage you though during the session to ask your questions again, either in the chat or the Q&A. I'll attempt to answer those while Matt's going through the demo, and I feel like that typically works better for the flow. So we're going to start with the gaps. What we found through our experience is that there's not really any easy process to track the customer and vendor returns in out-of-box Business Central end-to-end. Now, there are, of course, those return documents, which, yes, you can technically process the returns, but if you want that full end-to-end management, there's not an easy way to see that full life cycle, and you typically need a third-party solution, which we're going to show you ours today. The other thing is that there's not really an easy way to track any communications, either internal with your own folks or external out to your customers and vendors. And we're going to talk about both of these sides today, both the customer side, where your customers are requesting that they return something they bought from you, bringing that back in, and then potentially even taking what they've sent us and either disposing of it or returning it to our vendors. So as we jump into the solutions, some of the things that we're going to be going through today are how to generate an RMA from posted purchase invoices as well as sales invoices and track that full end-to-end life cycle for the customers and vendors, how to communicate with customers and vendors. We've got a lot of different email templates and things you can do automatically, both with the customer and the vendor side of things, right? One of the popular cases is somebody will submit an RMA, but then they don't actually send their goods back, or you submit the goods back to your vendors, they don't submit the credits back to you, things like that. So we're going to automate all that communication. Emailing different RMA forms to both customers and then requests out to our vendors. We've got full-blown dashboarding and statistics that we can look at to see kind of who our repeat offenders are. If we've got some bad vendors that are sending us defective items, if we have some repeat offenders on the customer side who are just constantly returning things that shouldn't be returned, and we'll go through that full RMA lifecycle. So we've got the customer inquires, they send the return, we get the receipt of their customer return, and then processing the credits. We can replace the orders as well, do the pick, pack, ship process, and then even send that back to our vendors, doing our vendor return, shipping the items to our vendors, automatic follow-ups, and then ultimately receiving those credits from those items. So I don't want to bore you with the slides. Matt's going to jump into a live demo of our RMA tool end to end. Matt, I'll let you take it over from here and I'll monitor that Q&A as you go.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Yep. So without further ado, going to go ahead and start this live demo here. Starting first, just going to breeze through the setup real quick to give you guys an idea of all the functionality within RMA. So up here, just general, what's the number series we're going to use for RMA cases? What's that GL account we're going to use if we want to charge a return fee to a customer when receiving goods from them? And then also that description on the invoice for that return fee. All right, then just a test email address. Again, there's a lot of different email templates and automatic emails that go out. So as you're testing this, don't want to bore or overload your customers and vendors with irrelevant emails. And then we've got a few default location options for processing the receipt of goods from customers. So either from that source purchase or sales invoice, location card return location, or default location like I've got here. So this is just going to say all of my returns are going to be processed through this location here. All right, and then just a few other options here. So got this set to automatically release my replacement sales orders. So just trying to speed up the process there of automatically releasing those for processing, estimated close date, and automatic close date. So when I create a case, it's going to say, all right, we should have this closed up in 30 days. And then if it's not closed 14 days after that close date on the case, go ahead and automatically close out that RMA case. All right, and then last is going to be this label in the sales return order. So again, I'll show it, but just a way to make sure your customers are sending the goods to the correct location. All right, and then some various automations here. We've got automatic item disposals. This is just calling out what item batch is going to be used to process those, and then automatically sending emails for assigned RMAs. So if a user in your BC environment is assigned to a case, just emailing them, letting them know, hey, you've got this case out there that you're going to be responsible for, and go ahead and start processing that. And then also emailing the customer once you've got the confirmation that that case has been created. All right, next is the vendor credit return period formula. So like Ben said, we've got some automatic emails if you process an RMA and you haven't received goods from a customer, or if you send goods back to a vendor and you haven't yet received that confirmation of a credit from them. All right, and then two other emails here. So have not received the goods from a customer. So if it's going to automatically close because you haven't received from a customer, go ahead and send them an email. Or if nothing happens and it passes that 14 days, go ahead and send that automatic close email. All right, lastly is going to be our email templates. We've got email templates for sales returns, purchase returns, replacement sales orders, replacement purchase orders, support cases, and any past due reminders. And again, I'll go ahead and show all of these as we're working through it. All right, so starting things off with our case list here, a few different ways you can create a new case. So I could either come in here and create new if it's going to be a vendor return. Otherwise, if a customer emails you and says, hey, I've got an issue with the product, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that email in here. Okay, so you'll see I went ahead, dragged and dropped that email. Customer reached out and says, hey, I'm having some issues assembling this product. Maybe there's something wrong with it. Maybe there's a missing piece, or maybe it's truly just a knowledge issue. Right, so if you remember, we've got those email templates. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just send this customer an email right from here. All right, so I've got my support email template here. Go ahead and click OK. And again, this is just going to be the template. So thank you for your email. Maybe drag and drop a link, any pictures, formatted text. If you've seen any of our email templates from advanced purchasing or CRM, this is going to be very similar functionality there. Right, so just trying to flush out for a customer, maybe there is truly something wrong with their product, or maybe it's just a knowledge issue and you want to point them to a link where they can resolve that on their own. Right, so go ahead and send that email there. Down here on the timeline, you'll see, all right, this is when the RMA was created, and then also storing that outbound email to the customer. Right, so in this case, we can go ahead and, for demo purposes, just pretend that there is truly something wrong with their items and they're going to need to go ahead and process a return. So in this case, I'm going to change the type from support to sales RMA, and I'll go ahead and select that customer that needs to process their return. All right, from here to add the items that are going to be returned, I can just do that directly from a posted sales invoice. So I'll click that here, add from sales invoice. Then here, this will be all of the posted sales invoices for this specific customer. So I can either search through this list to try and find it, or in this case, it was the chair. So I'll just go ahead and search chair and find that Paris guest chair black. All right, go ahead and select OK. And then just some basic fields here. So you'll see this return location code that's coming from the default in the setup that I called out. It's by default, it's going to grab the quantity from the sales invoice, but if they're only returning, half of the goods or one of the goods, you can go ahead and modify that quantity directly here. And then next, we've got that auto dispose. So if the product is defective and you want to process the negative adjustment for getting rid of this item, go ahead and select that there. And then next is going to be replace sales item. So two cases, right? Either they're going to return that item and they want the exact same product back, but a non-defective version, or maybe at this point they've realized, we like this chair, but we want an upgraded version. So on that replacement sales order, we're going to go ahead and send them a different item. All right, so define that there. And then next, I'll come up here and create my sales return order directly from the RMA case. All right, so as I did that, you'll see this sales disposition status has now changed on waiting on receipt. So, some days pass and you're curious what's the status here? I can go ahead and see, all right, we're still waiting on the goods from the customer, right? In this case, I can go directly to the sales return order again, right from this case card. Right, you'll see there, same information passed along from that RMA case. Okay, in this case, I can release it. And go ahead and email this directly to the customer. Again, I've got my dedicated email template used for sales returns. So I'll go ahead and click OK. You'll also see up here, I've got this %1 return. And then when the actual draft of the email comes up, that %1 is replaced with Cronus USA Inc., my company name. So again, just some of those wildcards for you to save time on these repetitive communications. And you can always come in here and edit the body of the email, but just trying to save time for processing returns. 2 attachments on this return. First is going to be the actual return order, and then also the return label. This isn't going to be a FedEx or a UPS label, but this is actually just going to show the address of the warehouse that this is being returned to for visibility on the customer side. All right. So from here, I can go ahead, send that email directly to the customer. We'll say some time has passed and we've finally received those goods. All right, so I'll go ahead and post the receipt of that return. Right, and the next call out. So if you remember back on the case card, I had set this item to auto dispose. This is just going to be an additional level of confirmation there. So this item has been set to auto dispose. This will remove the item from inventory. And then if you confirm, please properly dispose of the item. So in this case, we would be just throwing those defective chairs in the trash. Do you wish to continue? Yes. And then in the background, this is going to go ahead and create that item journal and post that item journal for the negative adjustment. Now over here, I get this email automatically since I had my email set as the test email, just going out to the customer saying, hey, the following RMA has been received. Here's the RMA number and here's the customer. Again, just utilizing those wildcards for visibility. And this email will go to both whoever's assigned to the case on your end, as well as the customer for visibility. All right. So back on the case card here, you'll see this sales disposition status has now changed to received, not credited. So we need to go ahead and process that credit memo for the customer. In this case, I'll go back to the sales return order and go ahead and post that. So it's just going to create that base Business Central credit memo, go ahead and post it. And in this case, I don't need to open the posted credit memo. All right. And finally here, so the sales disposition status has now been set to credited. I know that I can go ahead and create this replacement sales order for my customer. So again, haven't left the case card here. Go ahead and create that replacement sales order.
Hey, Matt, quick question while it does that. It looks like that came through. So that use case there where they're receiving it first, that would be basically to get the items in, inspect them, because potentially we're not going to give them a credit, right? But more often than not, the company probably will credit it. But that's a scenario where they're shipping it back, you receive it, maybe somebody's looking at it to make sure that it's valid and is eligible for a return, I guess, would be a good way to think of it. Is that kind of the use case there of doing them separately?
Correct. Yeah, in the case that it's a defective product and maybe they don't want a return or a replacement item, right? If it's like outside of the warranty period and they're saying, hey, this is defective, just again, giving you the ability to confirm that what the customer is saying is accurate.
Gotcha. And I know when you showed those options, there was the sales RMA, the purchase RMA, but then people could also just, you could also just file a complaint here or something, basically support only, where
Correct.
they might just be calling to call, right? A lot of people just like to call sometimes just to feel like they gave their input, right? But they're not even going to send anything back. So we can just, those are easy because we can just track them and close them out. But for tracking purposes, to potentially track churn or anything like that, we can see that in the dashboard later. So another good thing to call out. But that's all the questions we've got right now. So keep on going.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I went ahead and created that replacement sales order. In this case, since I selected to replace the sales item with a different number, if I go ahead and go to that replacement sales order, you'll see this new item on the lines rather than that original Paris guest chair. Right, so here on the replacement sales order, gets created automatically, one click of a button. It's going to have a comment here saying, hey, this is the replacement sales order for this specific case, just so your customer is able to relate it back to that. And then this is that new item that I had selected there. So again, here you would just process this like any sales order, depending on your warehouse setup in BC. In this case, I'm using our distribution control center. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, in this case, the original item was defective, so we want to give this customer a great experience and make sure we treat this order with high priority. Okay. All right, and I'll go ahead and release that. And I won't go through the full end-to-end process again. However you pick, pack, and ship orders is not going to change here. This is just going to create that sales order. All right. So at this point, I can go ahead and close this RMA out. There's nothing left for me to do. It will be retained back here on the case list. So I've got this sales RMA with the status of closed. Again, like Ben said on the dashboards, see how many closed cases there are. So in the case that a lot of people are having the similar issue with a product, that way when someone emails in the future, you can go ahead and reference an old case and see that timeline, any emails, just to validate that return there. Right. So next will be a purchase RMA. So this is going to be a vendor return, right? So I'll go ahead, set my date there, and then go ahead and select the vendor that I'm going to be processing a return to. Additionally, up here, you'll see there's also sales and purchase RMAs. So I'm not going to have time to go through that today. It's going to be the same exact functionality, but just allowing you at the RMA item level to track the return from the customer and the return to the vendor in the case that, maybe it was from the vendor, you never opened the box and it was defective. So you need to process the return from the customer and then that return back to the vendor and all of the related communications there. Right, so same exact thing here, but on the vendor side, I'm going to go ahead and add items from a purchase invoice. Right, so I've got that there. Go ahead and click OK. And now here, I've got a myriad of different interaction logs here. So I can either log an incoming call from the vendor, log an outgoing call to the vendor, or in this case, send an email directly to the vendor. So you see here, I've got this template set up for vendor returns. Go ahead and click that here. And again, same thing, I can edit this body as needed, add any CCs, BCCs, and that subject's going to give my company name and the RMA number. All right, so I'll go ahead, send that email to the vendor. And then back here on the home side, I'm going to create my purchase return order. All right, so again, very similar functionality to what we showed on the customer side, but this time it's the purchase disposition status. So in this case, we're waiting on the authorization from the vendor to return these products. All right, so I went ahead, created my purchase return order. And now I can go to that purchase return order directly from the RMA lines. All right. So again, information being passed directly from the RMA to the purchase return. I will go ahead and post the shipment of the goods out to the vendor, assuming that they had emailed in and said, you know, hey, this is approved. Go ahead and send your products back to us. All right. So go ahead, process that shipment. And again, coming back here, this purchase disposition status is going to switch to shipped, not credited. Right? So here I can go ahead and manually send this vendor waiting on credit email. So if a few days have passed, we still haven't received that confirmation of the credit from the vendor, or again, based on my setup, that can go ahead and run on a job queue based on a predefined number of days. I didn't call that out on the customer side, but it's going to be the same exact functionality where if you authorize a return from them and you haven't received those goods yet, you can either manually send that not received email, or based on that setup, have the job queue run and that email will automatically go out to the customer.
Hey, Matt, quick questions that I think I have the answers to, but please, you can confirm. So Susan, that's a great question. I think I answered it in the chat already. Basically, just trying to confirm that this would replace both the clunky purchase return order for the vendor side and the sales return order on the customer side. Matt, I basically answered in the chat, but want to share it with the group as well, that yes, this would replace those, but we are still utilizing those functions. So maybe replace isn't the right word, but we're kind of augmenting or streamlining it and making it easier to use with better tracking and more communication, both for your customer and vendor, as well as your internal folks who are going to be actually utilizing these documents on a day-to-day basis. Matt, anything else that you can think of there? But
yeah, that's spot on. It's really just enhancing the out-of-the-box functionality in both the creation and the tracking of those documents, right? So you'll see here, right, like go to purchase return order. This isn't our own functionality. This is base, BC, but just really enhancing the way that that gets created and interacted with.
yeah, and we're auto creating those documents through our case card. Susan, I think the best way to think of the case card, it's kind of a one-stop shop for all sales and purchasing returns, whether you're getting stuff back from your customers or you need to process returns back out to your vendors. And I know Matt showed them kind of separately, like sales order first and then go create a purchase one, but you can actually also do it all on the same RMA. There's an option to do sales and purchase where you can get the items back from your customer and then on that same RMA, return those items back to your vendors. And then John had a question as well. He said that we may have answered it now, but John, I just want to confirm. So John's question was, can you return to a non-sales stock for review and possible return to stock as used conditions, but still do a credit or replacement? So John, just to clarify that one, I was just wondering if basically you're saying that there's no original sales order or sales invoice to pull from, but you're trying to process a return. I know you said we're kind of answering it throughout the process, but I just wanted to make sure that your question was answered. So let us know if you need any further clarification there.
Yep, and also just to clarify there, so on the sales return that I showed, I'd set auto dispose to yes. If I didn't select auto dispose, then that item would just get returned to stock like it would on a normal sales return. And then after the fact, you could always process a disposal manually if needed. All right, good deal. So dispose, perfect. All right, so again, carrying right along. So shipped, not credited. Maybe I either manually sent that item shipped, credit not received email, or again, it ran on the job queue and the vendor's finally gotten back to me with that credit memo. So in this case, I'll go back to my purchase return order here, enter in that credit memo that I received from the vendor, and then go ahead and post that. All right, again, so same thing as the sales side, it's going to post that base BC credit memo. And then from here, I can either open it to view it, or again, just go back to that RMA card. All right, so here you'll see now that purchase disposition status is switched to credited. In this case, I could either close out the RMA, or if I want to process a new purchase order for the vendor, I can go ahead and create that replacement purchase order directly from here. And just a quick confirmation message. Yes, I want to create my replacement PO. And then again, directly from this case, I can go ahead and go directly to that replacement purchase order. So again, you'll see here, I've got this PO, and then same thing for processing. Whatever your internal process is for posting POs, you can go ahead and do that. All right. Then in this case, I will go ahead and close out that RMA. All right, you'll see that status gets switched to closed, and same thing, it's going to stick here on the case list. All right, last piece here is going to be the RMA Dashboard. So just a couple visualizations here for customers, vendors, salespeople, and purchasers and items, as well as just on the case side. All right, so here I've got who are my top customers that are returning items, what's that amount, and then scrolling down to get that list view of, who are my customers, how many open cases do I have any open return orders. Same thing with all of our other dashboards and base BC. Anytime this text is blue, you can go ahead and click on it to actually view that document, right? So again, using that RMA as the single source of truth, I could go ahead and open that directly from the dashboard for processing. I just saw a question come through. Can you reopen a case if necessary? Yes. So if I go in here, right, I've got tray research, 2 closed cases. Maybe they call and need to reopen one. I can go up here to home and just go ahead and reopen that RMA. All right, so then you'll see in this case, number of closed cases is switched to 1, and now I've got 2 open cases for tray research. And then again, just what's the amount that they've returned and what % of their sales have been returned. All right, and then same exact thing on the vendor side. So what are my top vendor returns by the amount? And then basically the exact same thing as what I showed on the customer side, but just from the vendor. So how many purchases have I made? Do I have any open cases, open returns, any returns that I've shipped to them, and closed cases and amount returned? All right, and then it's going to be very similar on the salesperson purchaser side. So, what purchasers, what salespeople are returning or opening the most amount of cases. All right, and then on the item side, so again, like Ben said, just trying to see if we've got any problematic items, anything that maybe isn't worth selling for how much we're getting returns. So amount that we've sold, how many open returns do I have? What's that dollar amount? What is the % of those sales that have been returned? The purchase amount, any open returns, and the % of those purchases that have been returned. All right. Reopen. All right. Don't think any additional questions have come through. At this point, that's everything that I had to cover today. I think we've got about 15 minutes left here. So if anyone's got any burning questions that they've got, feel free to enter those in the chat. Ben and I will stick around, and I'll go ahead and pull this up here for you on the next steps, Ben, in case we don't have any other questions.
Awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, really appreciate everybody asking a lot of good questions on the call today. So if you're wondering what to do after this, I know this is our 21st episode, so you've likely been on other ones before and have this down already. But if you haven't, we highly encourage you to download our 30-day free trial. Every single one of our extensions comes with 30 days free. We encourage you as partners to get it set up in your demo instances as well as for your customers to kind of try before you buy. For partners, we can get this in your demo environment, again, at no charge. For any end users, again, you can download this in your sandbox environment free for 30 days. We've got a quick activation video. It takes about 90 seconds to get set up. You go to the setup page, click the generate demo button, and then you're off to the races. You'll take some of what you learned today, hopefully be able to configure that very quickly, and then go ahead and jump right into testing. And then if you do need any assistance getting set up beyond that, we've got our videos, we've got our documents, and then you can always reach out to Matt or I from that. So outside of the next steps, want to talk a little bit more about the resources that we have available to you. Our product page is going to be kind of the source of truth. So it's going to have every listing that we have. We're just shy of 30 apps right now on AppSource, so you can also find them over there. But between our product page and AppSource, it's going to have similar information. You can find summaries about the product listings, use cases, setup guides, screenshots, videos, all that jazz. We've also got a full-blown YouTube channel. This is going to have video walkthroughs and demos of all of our products that we currently sell on AppSource, which is all of our products. We've also got some other kind of just tutorials, setups, and even things that are just out-of-box Business Central on there. So I'd highly encourage that you go check out our YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't already. And then finally, our product guide. So our product guide is about a 30+ page document with every page being focused on one specific product. This is going to give you a fit gap analysis of what the product is doing, kind of like what we talked about today. What are the current gaps? How do we solve for those? It's also going to talk about configuration time, which is huge because everyone knows that configuration can sometimes take a long time. Can take months to get these things set up. We like to think that most of our apps are simple setups and can get up and running very quickly. So for an advanced RMA tool or our CRM tool or project management tool, our dashboards, anything like this, the most time you're going to spend, I think, is 35 hours, Matt, on like a CRM or a project management. Something like this might take 5 or 10 hours to get set up end to end. And then our dashboards take about 30 minutes. So all of that can be found in our product guide. And it's going to be a wealth of knowledge just to learn more on what our products do, and also a good resource to send to potential customers if they're wondering kind of what all of our apps do, since I know there are a lot of them out there. So with that, I'll stick around a little bit longer if there's any additional questions. I know we have about 10 more minutes officially on the webinar. So again, if you've got other questions, please feel free to stick around. Otherwise, really appreciate everybody jumping on today to listen to Matt and I talk about our RMA and case management tool. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out at any time in the future. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.